Hello, I'm Deborah Chieli, a nationally board certified nurse practitioner with specialty certification in lifestyle medicine.
And I'm Susie Spell, a nationally board certified nurse practitioner, also certified in lifestyle medicine.
The following interview was part of a series that informed our presentation at the 2023 Annual Conference of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, ACLM, titled Nurses in Action, How Nurses Operationalize Lifestyle Medicine in Modern Settings, and You Can Too.
In this series, nurses from diverse backgrounds and practice settings and their champions tell their personal and professional stories about discovering lifestyle medicine and how they're implementing it across a wide range of settings.
Nurses are the largest health profession in the United States and globally, and have been voted the most trusted profession here in the U.S. for over 20 years. Learning about and incorporating the pillars of lifestyle medicine fosters full scope of practice and the ability to answer the call to lead by the National Academy of Medicine with their report, Future of Nursing 2020 to 2030, Charting a Path to Achieve Health Equity.
We hope these stories of success will inspire conversation and drive creative solutions to better address inequities in healthcare. Continued growth of nursing expertise in lifestyle medicine will expedite our nation's ability to address the public health emergency of chronic lifestyle diseases we currently face.
The power of nurses to create innovative solutions when combined with the practice of lifestyle medicine allows nurses to express their full potential while simultaneously addressing the salient issues of health equity, the epidemic of chronic disease, and the provision of truly patient-centered whole-person care.
When nurses are empowered to lead with an interdisciplinary and multi-sector practice, they answer the call of the National Academy of Medicine to dissolve barriers to care and improve health for themselves, the nation, and every global citizen. Enjoy the interview. Today's guest is Sheri Orlekoski, the plant-powered RN. She works at Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation Hospital in snowy Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's an acute care hospital, an acute care rehab hospital, and she works primarily with stroke, cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and amputee folks who have had their event and they're coming back to get stronger with their rehabilitation. And she has been a Food for Life instructor through PCRM since 2016. Sheri also runs the plant-based nutrition support group in her local area called Plant Powered for Health, which is a Plant Pure Communities group. And that all-volunteer group is really centered around evidence-based research that shows the incredible health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, low in fat, salt, and sugar without added oils. And they say on their website, Food Friends, Science, and Support, which I love. She's also on the board of directors of the Plant-Based Prevention of Disease, or PPOD, as it's called, conference. And we are really lucky to be hearing from her today. So Sheri, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Susie. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome. And what I'd love to start with is people's origin story. Like, how did you even discover a plant-based lifestyle or lifestyle medicine, and in particular the ACLM? How did you even get into this?
Okay. I had decided midlife to go back to school, and I was doing my nursing prerequisites, juggling all those responsibilities that many of us have of life and work and trying to fit in, going back to school. And I was very sick and tired of being sick and tired. I came across Forks Over Knives, which is common for a lot of us to have seen that documentary. And it really inspired me to just try a 30-day challenge. Just going to try it. And about that same time, I also came across PCRM and their a plant-based kickstart. And between those two resources, I tried 30 days. And I could not believe what happened. First of all, before I tried it, I did take about a week or two to think about it, decide what food I was going to live on, because you just think, what am I going to eat when it's brand new? So I took about a week. I figured out the foods I already knew that I liked that were predominantly plant-based, made a few adjustments, and knew I was going to be full and satisfied for 30 days. I can do it. Set myself up, tried a 30-day challenge. Could not believe it. I started waking up before my alarm, feeling good, losing weight. And it was just so inspirational for me that I just kept going. So I loved how I felt. I had energy to start doing some of the other things like moving my body more and the other pillars of lifestyle medicine. And that was my intro, was my forks over knives and getting started. And it's just been a journey into all these other realms. As plant-based nutrition has grown, there have been a lot more opportunities, a lot more organizations that are participating. And it's just been wonderful to explore all these avenues. I found I loved ACLM when I came across it. And I really loved that I can learn about all the different pillars of lifestyle medicine, because when you just rely on one area, like when I was just relying on my plant-based diet, even though it gave me all this energy and things that I could fuel for me to do better, when I wasn't paying attention to my stress and my sleep and the other things, I found, oh, that was really hard. So I love ACLM is very well-rounded, and it helps us think about all those pillars, and that you don't have to be perfect in all the pillars, just striving towards better in all of them, and it benefits your life. So that was my intro into plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine.
And so how did you get, I want to know a few things. There's a lot of things I want to know, but how did you get started with the Food for Life? Did you do that pretty early on? Because you discovered PCRN pretty early in the process, it sounds like. So did you dive into that quickly?
Yes. So PCRM has incredible resources. So PCRM.org, for anybody who is not familiar, would like to explore what they have. I had come across it's a 21-day kickstart is their challenge that they have. Now you can take that program that they have and try a 21-day kickstart, or you can even just use it as a great recipe book for whole food, plant-based recipes that are developed by doctors, researchers, nutritionists, nurses. And so they're healthy. It's not just completely plant-based, but they're really healthy. So I'd come across that resource and then started getting their information. And they have lots of things to help us out as nurses. And there is a program called the Food for Life program. There's a curriculum they have that is teaching, and they ask for applicants once or twice a year, and then they train you to be able to teach in the community. So it is something that people have to interview for and be selected for. But you know what? You can use all those resources that they have and share this information, whether you're a Food for Life instructor or not. But I found that was my first intro into my tribe. I found people that were my people that understood, and that was an incredible experience for me. So I did come across them early. I became a Food for Life instructor, found my tribe, and then have expanded from there.
That's amazing. And from what it looks like, you have brought that into the community, and you're the leader when it comes to that, bringing it into the community, not just in your role as an RN, but actually expanding out.
Yes. Okay. So I discovered all of this when I was going back to school. I diverted from talking about that, but I was going back to school. I was tired. It gave me energy to finish school. But when I actually became a nurse and went into the hospital, I didn't really know what I could do. And so I decided that I needed a try, and people needed to be able to know there was somebody there to support them. And what I could do was be that support out in the community. Actually, my introduction to a support group was from the plant-based nutrition support group, pbnsg.org. That again was an incredible experience that I traveled about 2.5 hours into Detroit to be able to go see my first PBNSG group meeting. It was incredible. That was like a gym full of 300 people there to see a speaker who actually happened to be Dr. Neil Bernard of PCRM. And I said to Paul Chatlin, started that group in Detroit, and he has an incredible story of turning his health around and starting that group. But I pledged to him that I would start a group in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so I did. And I checked with a few friends, and when you decide to do something new like that, it can be overwhelming. What are all the things? How can I find somewhere to meet? So I decided, along with a friend of mine, if there were two of us, it was a group. And she volunteered her house for the first meeting just to get started. And then we put the word out. And that started the series of events to be able to grow. So we did that. We put the word out at her house, and we had probably 12, 15 people show up. And that was the start. And we've had times where we've had 20 people, 30 people. We've had times where we've had 50, 60. We're on the smaller side compared to PBNSG, the big one, but every time we have a meeting, those people are supported. And I cannot believe it's life-changing to hear those stories that they tell people that come about that support, what it means to them, what they went home and decided to do. I feel like the luckiest practitioner in the world. I've had meetings where people just shared what was going on with them, and people said, I tried this and my A1C dropped from 8.5 to 5.6. I've had my blood pressure normalized, my cholesterol normalized, and you get chills because that's what most of us went into healthcare to do, to help people. And by supporting people, I have been able to experience this without telling them what to do, but rather by having that supportive environment where everybody might do it a little differently. We always have a potluck, no matter what we do. And so people can try different dishes, find one that works for them, and bring it into their routine. Some people do it a little bit at a time like that, and then some people go all in and do a challenge. Whatever's right for people is the thing that's right for them.
Gosh, I love that. That sounds so wonderful. It sounds like it's grown a lot. Tell us about your role as an RN in the hospitals. Are you working in any kind of lifestyle medicine program, or do you just bring that in? Tell us what it looks like a day in the life in the hospital.
So a day in the life in the hospital, primarily most of my time really is bedside with patients. And I know that's an area where we feel like we don't always know what we can do, but there's a lot we can do to plant seeds. And that is powerful to that patient that you touch their lives. So I find I don't have a predetermined script about anything. The more you practice and you get into sharing the bits and pieces, the more you find the commonalities and when it's the teachable moment. Most of us don't have a whole lot of time. And so those teachable moments can be delivered when the patient is open to it and delivered, and it's powerful for them. I've had patients who said, I really don't want to have to take insulin when I go home. That's an open door. Or if when they're concerned about taking their medications, which medications can be life-saving, but if they have concerns about them and they want to know that that can be a powerful modality, but also what can also be a very powerful modality is the choices that they make every day, how powerful they are. And so I then bring that to the table when they are talking about those concerns, their thoughts, their feelings, and then I bring in this to the table. And the number one thing I say, no matter whether they've opened the door or have anything else, is that I try to say to them that those choices are powerful and that they may think that their tastes are fixed. Most people do. They think their tastes are part of their personality and they're fixed. I like this. I don't like that. And if you know me, you know this. And that's the way it is. But so I always say to them that we have this thing, our brains are amazing, that's called neuroadaptation is the fancy name, but that our tastes can change. And you may hate kale. And I'm telling you, I promise you, you don't ever have to eat kale if you don't want to. But there's this amazing thing that happens, whatever it is you decide to try to incorporate and eat. Our brains are wired for survival. So if you were on a desert island and you only had fields of kale or fields of spinach, you would love that kale and spinach. You would be amazing how much you'd love it. You'd grow to love it. And so they laugh. And so that brings that to the table, and then I'll give them examples. And it may not be a plant-based example, but things that they can relate to. Like I'll say, did you ever try to go from whole milk to skim milk? Or drop your salt. And at first it's miserable. Like I'm used to those meals with all the salt and fat. And then I decided to cut back on my salt and everything tasted bland. And then we got in a routine of the things we were eating at home. And then we went out to our favorite restaurant again, and that meal was so salty. And if they can relate to it, then they get that it connects that for them and how their taste can change. And so that is a great one to just give them the idea that they can do better and that doing better is really going to matter. I think Dr. Bernard is really good about when he, at PCRM, when he talks about his story about how he had his father was teaching diabetes, or not teaching, but he was a doctor that treated diabetes, and his patients got sicker slowly over time because it was the traditional paradigm of just do a little bit better. And sometimes that's enough for people, but sometimes people just get disheartened that they try so hard and don't do better. But when they make a big change, they feel better, and then they realize they really do, it does make a difference. When I get the opportunity to talk about whether someone wants to just do a little bit better or make a big change for a challenge, a week or 2 or 3, and see if someone's willing to do that change, they get so much more benefit and they feel so much better that it opens that door to them, like, oh, I could really do this. So those are a couple examples of just opening the door and planting the seeds. I'm sure I'll think some more while we're talking about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I love that. And one of the things that Deborah and I, have felt that we really want to hone in on is how nurses at the bedside that have all these competing demands, how do you actually bring this in, just some little tidbits? So there's a couple of things you said were great. And one of the physicians we talked to said to not miss the opportunities for tiny conversations. Dr. Bonnet said that, and I thought, wow, that's a great way to think about it.
They're powerful. I think that even that whether it's colleagues or whether it's patients, that time where you pass each other in the hall and you just touch base. And with your patients, it's that same way. That moment can mean so much.
Yes. And do you give your patients anything? So I want to know a couple things. One is, I'm asking about tools that you may use in your practice inpatient, and how your colleagues, nursing colleagues, physician colleagues, dietitian colleagues, how you've worked with them, or if you've had any resistance, like what has your experience been?
So I think I'm going to go with the colleagues ones first. So at first, I didn't talk a lot about vegan food, but I was demonstrating that I was doing a vegan diet. And I think that I did talk a lot about whole food, plant-based, but I think that can repel people sometimes when you're talking about a specific diet. And it's one of the things I love about the ACLM is that plant predominant diet really is inclusive, where any other diet, whether we're talking about any of them, when it talks about what you restrict, that can put people into one camp or the other and exclude people. So I like to talk about that I encourage people to eat more plants. That's the way I talk now. Eat more plants, that I'm a plant cheerleader to include more whole plant foods in the diet. And I think that helps invite conversations. I'm very clear that I don't tell people what to eat at the bedside. That's not my role. And I really support our registered dietitians who have invested their lives and their careers into this topic. And I champion them. We may not have exactly the same philosophies just yet, but how important it is. So I really encourage people to have that nutrition consult. when doctors take the time to say anything about lifestyle, I bend over backwards to say thank you so much for mentioning that. I had a doctor who talked about for a patient that needed more calcium. He not only said he said dairy products, but he also said, or green leafy vegetables. And I said, thank you so much. That meant a lot that you talked about that. And he said, oh, you like that? And absolutely. It's important. It's so important. So we're all busy in our silos, and those moments that we can try to draw each other in to have that common conversation about delivering it to the patient, I think helps build those bridges. I also think that if we can find opportunities to have education, that's continuing education, that will have a common place for those discussions. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about ACLM.
Sure.
The bundle for the...
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great.
So the Lifestyle Medicine and Food as Medicine Essentials bundle is an incredible opportunity. Now that I'm talking about it, I have to remember for the whole audience that might watch this, different ways that they can access it. So whether you are a member of ACLM or not, lifestylemedicine.org/essentials. Actually, there it is right there. All right. If you go to that page, there are a couple of different ways that you can take this bundle, and it should be available for free one way or the other. Let's see.
I think there was a code on there.
Yeah. I got to go back here and get one right here. Right now, if you're a member of the public and you're not in a healthcare system that is participating in the Health Systems Council with ACLM, which if you don't know what that is, contact the ACLM. And if you're interested in bringing your organization into that, it's a great place where we can share resources. And there's active meetings on how people are bringing lifestyle medicine into their facility. But the public, okay, so that's number one. You could get a code that would help. You would pass this around to your whole organization. You could pass these free modules. I haven't even said what it is yet. But there is a public code, WHC22, that should be active still right now. White House Council 2022, I think it was. WHC22. And you should be able to get this free. It's a bundle of education that is worth $220, I believe. And it's really incredible. It's basics. So this is something that you can share with colleagues. It's something that you can get your own CEs. But it's also, most of it may not be appropriate for every single patient you come across, but it's something that is good basic information even for patients if they can access it for free with that code. That's one example of the many great resources with ACLM for education. So I would say, went on a tangent, but I would say that having that basic education opportunity to be able to have something in common with, it starts conversations. An example that I am following up on right now is I've spread this bundle. I've offered it through our hospital and trying to get conversations with people about it, that they have this free continuing education opportunity. And it's a free opportunity whether they need education, the continuing education or not. But we have recreation therapists that help, because we're a rehabilitation hospital and there's recreation therapists that help patients get back to the things that they love. And they loved this. They took it as a group and they're finding ways that they can incorporate it. You never know if it's going to be the dietitians, whether it's going to be the doctors, whether it's going to be anybody else in your facility who it might spark that interest in. And if you have something like this, or having a potluck at your facility that is a plant-based potluck, kind of advertise, I have the support group, just an opportunity to get together at that one event, we're asking for a plant-based dish to share. You'll be surprised at how many people might be a part of your tribe and not afraid that they can't say anything about it, or maybe they're shy and they don't want to say anything about it. And you'll grow your tribe of people to bring more. And because ACLM has so many other things outside of even food, which can be a touchy topic, If you can bring in things that talk about sleep or that talk about stress reduction, we all need that right now. That is a common thread that is relatable to just about everybody, and it can open that door for those conversations.
I love that. Thank you for
I
sharing
forgot
that.
what the first question was.
No, it was, and you already were starting to talk about it, and that CME that you showed with the code,
Yes.
I think it's 5.5 hours of CME, so it's not just like an
It
hour;
is.
it's a chunk.
Absolutely. And so it's something that people can, and they can do it at their own pace. So it's not like a class you have to sign up for this specific time. So you can do it at your own pace. You could get a friend and you can do it together if you want, or a group. But it's valuable for you if you need CEs, but it's a lot of great information. It's an overview of lifestyle medicine, and it's some of the ins and outs, the basics of food as medicine.
Yeah, I love it. So the other part of the question, which you started to touch on anyway with that tool, was what tools you might use for patients at the bedside, because you are busy. I know you can have those little tiny conversations.
Yes.
But do you use any of the ACLM handouts, or have you guys created your own? Like, how has that?
I don't have my own formally created. What I do the most, and I have just one visual to show you, but I usually just draw it on a board, or I draw it on a paper, or whatever's good for the patient, is talking about insulin resistance with patients. Now, in my practice, it's in my practice, what's most people in the US are some level of insulin resistant, whether they have diabetes or prediabetes or not. They may still be a little bit insulin resistant. So this kind of information can be really valuable for everybody, but especially if they're looking at prediabetes or diabetes and they want to understand better what their choices mean for that. Because the diabetes itself, it's really, the blood sugar is a symptom of that underlying problem. We're controlling those blood sugars through conventional medicine because if you don't, it has so many other consequences. But controlling them doesn't fix the underlying insulin resistance. When I talk about this, that I'll show you, I'm talking about and introducing the insulin resistance piece, and that what they do matters. And so this picture formally is from PCRM and Dr. Neil Bernard, but I really draw it very simply. And I talk about all of the cells of our body, especially our muscles and our liver, but all these cells and how they need the blood sugar for energy. And this is the cell, and that inside the cell, we have the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria. That's what's going to convert that blood sugar into energy. And that all of the cells have to have the blood supply that go to it. We think about, I'm going to put this down a second. We think about our blood vessels just being the big ones that we can see, but that it's a web all through our entire body, and all those nutrients go everywhere in our body. So everything we do and everything we put in our body is going to go everywhere and affect everything. And so when that blood supply is heading to the cell, if the blood sugar is hanging out in the blood and not getting into the cell, that it can be, if it's not getting in the cell, it's going to heat up. And I think if you put maple syrup into a pan and you had it at about 100 degrees and you put, like, say, grapes into it, and I say, and you just warm it, what would happen to that? And they'll say, wouldn't it get sticky and it would get like caramely? And I say, yeah, it caramelizes. And that's like your red blood cells in your blood. And if you've got high blood sugar, it's like it's caramelizing that red blood cell. And that red blood cell is trying to get the oxygen to every little bit of your body. And so if that red blood cell gets caramelized, it can't do that anymore. And so you can't get the oxygen to all the little pieces, like the little pinky toe that you have that's getting red and having a hard time and sore and hard time getting the blood to it. So by keeping that blood sugar down and by opening up this circulation, you're going to be able to keep that pinky toe. But how does the blood sugar get into the cell? We talk about that the insulin is the key that opens up the door to get into the cell. And so if insulin, let's see, I'm doing this a little bit backwards and on this picture, so it's a little bit harder, but basically your body can be pumping out insulin for a long time and you don't have any symptoms, and it can be compensating for 10 years. And that's when people are pre-diabetic. But if we are building up inside this cell, if we're building up fats, it's called intramyocellular lipid. And I'll tell them the fancy name first. But the real name is inside the cell fat buildup. That's what that conversion is. If it builds up in that cell, then the key can't open up the door to get in. And if the insulin can't open up the door for the blood sugar to get in, then it builds up in your blood vessel, and that's when you get all the problems. So you want to be able to make your insulin work better to let that blood sugar into the cell. And how do you do that? It's by reducing your fats, like your saturated fats. It's by eating lots of whole plant foods, reducing your saturated fats. And I explain where those saturated fats come from, that primarily it's from animal foods, but it's also, I talk about coconut and palm oil and those things that are in the plant world that have high saturated fat. And that by removing those things, I talk about when they exercise, how it helps the insulin work better and go in, that the glucose can go into there. And basically, it's a simple concept that helps people understand that what's on their plate is going to translate to that happening and being able to have energy instead of it staying in the blood vessel and creating problems and making their blood sugar rise. So I've had times where I've just talked about it briefly, and I've had not only the patient kind of understand and have a light bulb go off, but family members too. And that moment probably could take 5 minutes or less to really explain. And for them to understand the translation to how what's on their plate matters to that meal, and not only that meal, but their blood sugar the next 24 hours is hugely powerful. So that, I think, can translate to not only people with blood sugar, anything circulation, heart. I think it can be almost everything. Almost every patient, you can have some kind of a conversation about that. That's one of my probably most common and most powerful tools.
And I love that. I know that image. I know that image well. And what you're demonstrating, what that whole thing just demonstrated to us, is that you as a registered nurse have gotten the education that you need to be able to educate your patients, because that is within your scope of practice, is to be able to educate them, whether it's at the bedside or maybe you do it with your groups outside. But we're talking about you as an RN in the hospital. You are educating. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And when you do it over and over, because I've used the same image and now I just use my hands and the blood. But now, like, once you repeat it over and over, put it in your head, you repeat it a couple of times, you tell it to your family, you tell it to a patient, you refine that down to just a couple of minutes worth. It doesn't have to take a long time, but it's certainly within your scope of practice to do that.
Absolutely. And I think nurses are a powerful force, an army of us just waiting to be able to share this, and we should be used to be able to do that. I think that if we could do that, then it would help the patients move them. The education would help move patients to where they are and what they're ready for change, in their willingness to change. It would move them along. And then the other educators and the other pieces, the other people on the team would be more effective. For example, if I've talked about this benefit, and encouraged people to at least eat more plants and the reasons why. Then when the dietitian comes in and they're saying, what are you willing to do? This is the good stuff, and this, what are you willing to do? They're going to be doing more than they were before. It's like aiming for that higher goal, shooting for the moon and landing among the stars.
I love that. I love that. That's a perfect example. So I wanted to ask you, hold on one second. I had a thought in my head.
It's okay.
Especially with the edge. Oh, this is what I want to say. Okay. So you said that we should be able to do this, and more of us should. And one of the things that Deborah and I have looked at and are trying to bring forward is that there has been an urgent call to action from the National Academies of Medicine. They have a series of reports, with the most recent one being The Future of Nursing 2020 to 2030. And there's a number of recommendations in there, but it really does call on the action of nurses, who, by the way, we're the biggest healthcare group in the US and actually globally as well. We have over 4 million in the US.
It's really incredible.
I know. And then physicians are just over 1 million. And I think registered dietitians in our country are around 112,000. So when you really look at who has the most time with patients, we have so many touch points with them. And we probably have the most time with anybody. And so I really think it's an important thing that nurses can help move this lifestyle medicine forward and make it really expansive, because we're everywhere, So
we are. And I think it should be, yes, I agree. This is a very important piece and will help facilitate all this. But right now, I think most nurses who are actually engaged and working are at risk of or already burned out and leaving the field because they're so tired.
Right.
This not only can help them to be better personally, it can help them to have the ability and have the ability to stay working and not be so burned out. But there's so much job fulfillment in being able to have somebody to be able to give that information and have it make a difference to other people and see that difference. The clinician satisfaction increases so much. So I think that by how do I want to say this? I guess by investing in this and investigating it, it can not only help you personally, but professionally, and bring it to everyone.
It's a win. Yeah, it's a win situation, right? Yeah. And when we talk about that Future of Nursing report and the Code of Ethics for Nursing, both of those documents talk about the nurse should give herself or himself or theirselves as much love and support as we give everybody else, because that is a huge issue, the burnout. And then COVID only put a spotlight on that.
Intensified it times 10 at least,
right.
Really.
Right.
So, yes.
It's an important piece. And do you mind if I read a little bit? This is Deborah usually does this part. She's really good at it. But
yes,
we have a little section here that talks about the future of nursing and charting a path to achieve health equity. And if we could just get your thoughts on how we, as lifestyle medicine educated nurses, can lend our particular insight and unique experience and education and passion to this whole effort. And I want to read just a very small clip from the Future of Nursing report. It says, nurses are trusted bridge builders who champion good health for all. The Future of Nursing 2020 to 2030 report explores how we can and must unleash the power of the nurse to achieve health equity, and how the systems nurses function within must do more to educate, pay, employ, and enable nurses to support them so they can do more. Any thoughts about that?
Yes, I just think we're an untapped resource. We really are. Not only for this whole wheel to work of planting the seeds, how inspiring the patients, that the other clinicians are more effective, but also we're supporting each other. I see so often that we're all struggling and working hard and we need to support each other. And maybe that we can help even educate, like when I've had people that a patient says they want ice cream, and then here comes somebody that just goes and runs and gets ice cream without regard to anything else. And it's a moment to help educate the other person too on what their prescription is and what's going to benefit them, and maybe offering how to offer other examples of healthier snacks. I'm so glad when you said that this report came out and is recognizing that. I just think we're a force to be reckoned with, and we have that time with the patients. We have that information, and it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. It doesn't have to be us telling them, this is what you should eat, this is what you should do. And in fact, that's not how patients best respond. Patients, you think about it, do you want to be told what to eat? No. We want to be inspired. And so we're in a position to inspire other people based on what they're telling us is important to them. We hear it, we're with them. We have that opportunity to hear this. They might be open to this because this is what I heard. And if you're worried, if you're a nurse and you're worried about what you can say, I would recommend checking your own state's licensing and seeing what it says about your role, your licensure, and your lane. And education is a nursing lane. I can't speak for every single state. I think you should look and make sure you feel empowered to know what your state verbiage is. But the commonality, it really is, I believe, you'll find that education is the place to be. And so we're not prescribing. We're able to inspire, find the teachable moments, and offer it up and support them in that. And the more you can do that, and then maybe give a little tip to the other colleagues, other people on the team, the dietitian, the doctors, that this is what was important to them and that they might be open to XYZ because of that. They'll love that. They're tired too. They can't think of all the things to say in their 5 minutes. And so it then gives that bridge to the other team members, and we can work together on the same topics.
I love that. Thank you. So well said. And I really do agree with you that we're a force to be reckoned with. What else did you say? We're an untapped resource. I love that. Yeah. It really is. And you've done such a nice job at highlighting how the roles that we play as nurses actually helps facilitate and support every other person's role on the team. And it's all with the patient at the center. That's why we're doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think anybody, I think I already said this, but I don't think that anybody wants to go in and say, this is exactly what you need to do. Goodbye, in and out. Mm-hmm. But by having that, we're offering that support and bringing it all together.
And what do you think, what are the best ways that you have to stay up to date on what the evidence base is?
So there's a lot out there. I love ACLM. I just had to come back to that because you can get monthly updates, you can get links to particular articles. And so it gives you a chance to go out to the thing that's important to you, to the medical diagnosis that might be relevant to your patients, to the topic you might be really interested in taking a deep dive in. There's links to research. They have their own education platform with continuing education. In addition to the free CEs we talked about, there are other ones that you can pick and what's really important to you. I just recently took we were talking about diabetes. I just took the type 2 diabetes remission certificate program because that was so relevant to my role. And this is incredible. I really would encourage anybody to take that. But there are other things. So whatever's important to your nursing role.
Yes. And I took the reversing diabetes course as well. It's phenomenal. It is really
good. It really is. There's even the final module even has resources that you can share with your facility about reimbursement and things that are important to them. And this is something I definitely want to share. I think that we are so busy in our silos in our business and getting our business done, and inertia is really easy to set in because I'm only able to get all of the things I need to get done and I'm out. And so sometimes when you bring something new people, especially in administration, may be resistive to something new. But if you can show the benefit to them, that's where I would start out. Not even that. Yes, the results when patients get the results, but when you can show there's something to show that we could increase a way of having reimbursement, that these patients are rehabilitating by this method, and that it could be a break even to revenue plus, then they're probably going to listen more, because everything's tight out there.
Yes, and we've had some conversations about that, Deborah and I, through this whole process of interviews that we're doing, because an RN at the bedside sometimes is on the losing side of the revenue sheet, right? Instead of the break even or the benefit part, which there's a lot of opportunity now, and hopefully there will be even more into the future. So I love that you mentioned that.
So that module does even have some things that you can take and spread throughout your organization to bring that back into, and there's a lot more of that at ACLM.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know they have so many things. I do want to ask you a question to go back just a little bit. And one of the nurses we talked to said, you just have to learn how to run it up the flagpole. And so that was ringing in my head when you were talking about the 5.5 hours of continuing ed. And you mentioned how you were spreading this to other people in your hospital. So how did you do that? Do you have to have key relationships with people? How do you run it up the flagpole is the question, really.
Because of all the work, whatever work you do will build relationships over time. So when I say this, I want to say you don't have to do everything all at once. Okay. So sometimes when you get really energized, you can try to do everything and burn out. So I don't want you to do that. But every step you take, no matter what lane it's in, whether it's having a potluck, whether it's at your facility or in the community, whatever it is, it will start building those relationships and bringing your tribe together. So then where you have opportunities to plant those seeds. So I've been doing this a long time. So that has helped me to get to the people that I was able to be able to spread it more on a facility basis. I have people in administration who are very interested in the concept and wanting to help reverse chronic diseases. And so as a concept in rehabilitation. And so they're willing to let me advertise to everybody. If you don't have something like that, a suggestion I would say is who might be really interested in your facility is human resource or employee health. That's a great area where they want ideas on ways to be able to, that same thing. They can't tell people what to do to be healthy. They need things that are going to invite people to the table and invite them into the healthy party. And bringing things to them or using them as a resource to be able to spread it would be a great idea. And before I forget to say it, a resource that is fantastic that I would recommend is Full Plate Living. I have to look over here real quick to make sure I get, and I'm going to say why, a few things about why. Okay, Full Plate Living. So they have great information that is plant predominant. It's not whole food plant exclusive. And so there are some free programs, there are handouts, there are things that someone might be very willing to bring in that just talks about what is fiber, why is it important, and 3/4 of your plate being plants. That is inclusive. And my experience so far is it's been something that organizations are willing to share. That will help people's health no matter where they end up, and it invites them into it. And so I'd really recommend utilizing their resources. There is also a documentary called Plant Wise, and it is free. And it's a smaller version of a lot of our plant-based documentaries that maybe many of us are familiar with, Forks Over Knives, as an example. But it's free. It's something that we could put on a little handout we could give to somebody. It might be something I haven't explored bringing that documentary into the patient screen, like where they can watch documentaries. I have, however, been able to, at a point, I got Forks Over Knives onto that inpatient documentary screen and Plant Pure Nation. So depending on your provider, you might be able to see if it's available. But that won't be available to everybody. But this plant-wise documentary, you can direct people to. Most of our patients have phones or devices that they could just go right to and watch the documentary. And now that I'm talking about it, I can't remember exactly how long it is, but
it's only about 45 minutes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Mm-hmm. I thought 45 minutes. So it's something that's doable. They could do while they're in bed, waiting for their next appointment. Or you could tell them about it if it's outpatient, and they could take home and watch it easily. It's free. They don't have to invest in it. And it will introduce those concepts. And then that same resource has some recipes and things that could get them introduced. It would start a conversation. It would plant a seed. And it's beautiful to be able to have all those visuals and get them to the next step.
Yes, and I love that documentary. It's in my arsenal now.
Yes.
And if I remember right, if somebody's interested, I have not explored it as much myself, but Full Plate Living, I believe, also has facilitator documents. Like if you're really interested in this information and you wanted to bring it and you wanted to run a group, they even have the facilitator manual to do that.
Fabulous.
You just have to sign up to get it.
Okay. There are so many things now that, like I said, if you don't think you have to do it all, you find one resource and start building, and more will come. If you build it, they will come.
I do have a question. I know we've been talking for a while now, but can you touch on any aspects of social determinants of health? Do you see that in your patients, people who are vulnerable populations or people of color or anything like that? How do you guys assess for social determinants of health and what kind of access to care they might have, or groceries, or who does the cooking? Do you guys assess for that?
We do. It's actually just something that I'm getting into, so I can't speak fully on what we do or what the whole protocol would be. What I would say right now is that one of the things that I love about lifestyle medicine, and whether it's that or whether it's the whole food plant-based diet or any of the pillars, is that most of the things are things that most people have access to. Whether they have been taught how to cook or not is a whole nother topic when we're talking about, or the education about any of this in general. They may not have had it. But I like to say, we think that eating healthy is expensive and doing these things is expensive, but it doesn't have to be. It can be the most very basic and fulfilling ways to live. So in the world, when we sit back and look at the bigger picture, in the world, the areas of the world that have the least amount of resources, the least amount of money, their main staple diets are like beans and rice and those kind of crops that are basic. And those things are not out of reach. It's just, in our society, what do we do with those things to be able to keep people's interest and make it happy and healthy, that they love to do it and they're willing to do it? But it doesn't have to be expensive. Learning how to stay away from screens at night and get sun exposure when you wake up in the morning, and living more in your circadian rhythm. Those are things that are accessible to everyone. They don't have to be something you have to go out and buy. So I think if we can, when we're thinking about social determinants of health, lifestyle medicine is just an anchor piece of that, where everybody has access to these things. And if we can have even some of the most, I'm going to say, basic pieces of how to, that could be maybe a free class for your community, or something that they get a rebate on something if they come to the class, and then they won't have to have a financial output, but that they learn how to make those beans into something that's delicious, and how that'll affect their diabetes while they're there, and staying away from risky substances, and how to not stress. Those kind of classes could be very inexpensive to deliver and very meaningful to people. and accessible to everyone, regardless of your social standing and access to resources. I also find one more thing is that when we were talking about that bigger picture of the world, is that most of those healthy recipes around the world are from a variety of different cultures. And so you can really take what's important to somebody, their historical, what their family is used to, and really just do a little healthier twist by honoring their traditions and maybe just having a little twist, a little way you make it a little different. And because when you learn better, you do better. And honoring their traditions, but making it healthy for themselves and their family today. So it really can be accessible to everybody.
Yes, so true. Thank you for sharing that. That was a very nice wrap up on that. And so I just like the last question would be something like if you had any advice for any other registered nurse, especially inpatient, because that's where you are mostly, what advice would you give to an RN who, let's say they're just seeing this video for the first time and they want to learn more and actually start to institute this?
Start where you are. It's the same, I would say, to a patient, I think, is what is your spark? What's important to you? Start where you are. And you don't have to take everything on at once. Find one thing that you can do. What's the next step you can do? If you have never seen the PlantWise documentary, I think that's a great place to start. Find the common thread that you can share, that you feel confident, and check your state's Board of Nursing verbiage. Make sure you feel confident in what you're sharing. And the truth, if somebody challenges you, if you are concerned about somebody challenging you about sharing it, you have then the arsenal of and the confidence that this is my scope of practice and I can deliver my scope of practice and it's inclusive and I'm sharing that with my patient. So that's where I would start, is just you feeling confident in what you have the ability to deliver to your patient. And that relationship is going to make a difference. And then as you go, you'll find what the next challenge is, and we can network together with ACLM and our nursing group, and we can find those ways to have that bigger picture that we would love to see, that lifestyle medicine is the foundation of healthcare and that we're all working together to make everybody the best they can be, but that your piece matters and your piece that you deliver to your patient matters.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. So I do love that piece that you said about checking your state practice act, because one of the things that we're going to be talking about in our presentation is going to be that we have our education, we have to be nationally board certified. There's the ANA, right? The bigger picture, but then there's your state board of nursing. And then if you work in a facility under somebody's umbrella, you also have to understand the scope of practice or what they may or may not limit you further. So being able to put those pieces together and how you can make bringing lifestyle medicine into nursing a little easier once you understand all those pieces.
Yeah. So, because if you are delivering within all of those regulations and you are delivering that and it's meaningful to your patient, then you're not going to be hitting outside the lanes that someone could get upset about.
Right. Absolutely. So anything else that we didn't talk about that you think you'd like to share or want to share? Anything I didn't ask?
After we're off here, I will think of all of them.
That's okay. Sure. A lot of people say that.
But I do think that lifestyle medicine really should be the foundation of healthcare. When your patients want to go to the doctor when something's wrong, what we all as the public go to the doctor for and go to the medical profession for is to get better, not just manage our chronic symptoms. And all of this working together, all of the pieces of the puzzle, we're going to come together and help this to be ultimately the foundation of healthcare. But I do think that's the ultimate bigger picture goal. And each step, we're just going to chunk the challenge in steps and we'll do it together.
Yes, I love that. That's a great place to end. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Susie. I appreciate everything that you and Deborah are doing so much and at ACLM and all of us together. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you.